I am so amazed at the number of, I call them young people, of 30, 40, and early 50-year-olds who come to me and want someone just to talk to and someone just to share what they're going through and to listen to their story. And we are needed, us people with a few gray hairs are needed to be that listener and to be that come alongside and maybe in some cases guide people. But it's a very broken world. And we have navigated the broken world with Jesus. Christ has taken us through so much that we can walk with other people. And it's such a joy to do that.
So, Micah, let's turn our attention to the kind of personal side that you and I are wanting to continue learning, right, from people like Cheryl. So, Cheryl, maybe take us into some of your journey on the personal side of how you've grown. And Micah, I know you've got some questions in mind for her.
Yeah, Cheryl, one question I always like to ask people is what advice would you have for your 30-year-old self now with the hindsight of life experience?
Well, what I would have told my 30-year-old self is to absolutely surrender and be more obedient to God. I was a hard charger at 30, and I used to even tell myself, I'm moving forward, I'm going quickly, come on, God, catch up, because this is exactly where we should go. And that was so arrogant and so sinful that I'm just shocked that I was like that. But God has taken me through so many things and taught me so much that I absolutely humbly and respectfully am thrilled to join him in this journey. So I would have told my 30-year-old self to really spend more time building that relationship with God. I would have told my 30-year-old self to balance work and spiritual life and home life better. Those are the things I would have told myself. I would also have probably given myself some grace at 30 because I was very unaware of what all is out there in the world and how I was exposed to so many, some of it trials and some of it joy that God has given me to shape my life.
You've mentioned today C12 and Halftime. Are those the programs that have had the most impact on you? Or are there other resources you've used that have helped you grow as a leader?
I think those are two of them. Probably the third that really helped me grow was I did 5 years as COO of Open Network, Open USA. And it was a group of about 140 businesses that went into the 1040 window. And they were business people, men and women, who were giving dignity and respect through jobs and sharing the gospel in the marketplace. And for me, it was one of my big learning opportunities where I saw that around the world, we can have an impact for Christ if we use the skills that he's given us, that we could go into that marketplace and share the gospel anywhere we are in the world, because we share it through not only what we're saying, but through our lives, and it makes a difference and an impact. And that was one of the next level up that God educated me on. And I found that amazing to go through that journey.
I'm curious how you have involved your children in your philanthropic endeavors, and has that been a big part of your parenting of them, or has that been later as you brought them along?
I think the kids learned much of what my children learned about giving back and giving to others. They probably learned through our life experiences and what we did. I have quite a story with my children that I didn't realize was a story until after I walked through it with all of them. Lloyd knows the story a bit, but I adopted my first child at 26 from Korea, and he was 9 months old. And then 9 years later, I had my biological child. And then 14 years later, I adopted a baby. I was almost 50. I was 49, adopted a baby girl from China. Um, and she's now turning 30 this year. It's amazing. And then my finally at 58, I adopted my second son, who was 25 years old, had his own house, his own job, but he needed a mom. And so God was able to bring all of this together in an amazing way to reach out to bring people into our family who've given me so much more than I could ever give them. It was just a joy to parent these four children. And so the children learned through um, pretty much what we were doing in our lives from a day to day business. We were engaged in McDonald's. We did some work with nonprofits when we owned the business. We were able to build an orphanage and a church in um, the Rwanda area. And God just kept giving us opportunities. And my children saw it through that. And now both of my daughters are involved with nonprofits. One of them is a podcast director, another one is a tech person. And so they've given back. I lost my son to heart disease 7 years ago, but he was a real giver. And so my kids have been impacted by the life that we live together. And now we talk about from a actual stewarding of money. The kids are very aware of where I give my money, and they know that they're taking it over when that day comes. And so they know what my wishes are, but I want them to think for themselves about what it is that they have a passion for and where God leads them to steward what the gifts He's given us.
And Cheryl, take us back a little bit to the story, the remarkable story of the boy that you adopted when he was 25, and how that came about, how you discovered his deep need for a mom and a family.
Okay. Well, at the time, we were in a very small church, a church of about 100. And we were sitting in church, and my teenage daughter, Catherine, who's quite the jokester at times, at 18, stuck an elbow in my rib and says, "Mom, look, there's an Asian in the church." And there was one Asian young man who came. And so after church, she ran and got Alexis, the 5-year-old, and went up and introduced herself to Zach. And from that point, she and Zach were a couple years apart, and her boyfriend at the time, now her husband, the three of them would started sharing, going out for lunch and things. We found out that Zach had been adopted from Korea, but through a divorce and some other situations, had been abandoned a bit by his family as a young teenager, 13 or 14 years old, that he'd spent some time alone. Um, he worked, saved money, paid for his food, and there was no adult in the house. And he had been by himself, and he moved back from the Outer Banks and was in the Clayton area. So he did everything with us for about 4 years. When we had Christmas, he was there. When we took a trip, I'd say, "Zach, you want to go?" And I'd buy him a ticket. Well, my daughter was getting married, and she was fussing about her mother. And I'm sure it was the budget for the wedding. And Zach said, "Shut up, Catherine. At least you have a mother who loves you." And Catherine turned to him and says, "Do you want a mom? My mom will adopt you. She'll take anybody." And it started out as a joke. And after the wedding and everything was done, Zach and I had conversations. And he really longed for a family. So we made the decision to adopt him. And so we adopted him at age 25. And it was a delight. So he was in my life for 17 years, but 12 and a half as my son before he passed away. And it was a blow. And even at his funeral, there were over 9 people who got up and said, "Zach was my best friend. Zach was one of those guys who loved everybody and accepted them for who they were and what they were." And so he was a joy to have in our family.
That's an amazing story. Cheryl, What do you think the keys are for finishing well? Lloyd mentors me, and he's always saying, the goal of life is to finish well because sadly, very few people do. Some people get off track even in their 70s and 80s. But what is your advice for finishing well in life?
Well, I think the Bible's pretty clear. Paul says, I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God. And it's that pressing toward the mark. It's not stopping where God has used you, because not where God has used you before, but where has God has taken you, because those skills and those experiences are exactly what they need. I am so amazed at the number of, I call them young people, um, 30, 40, and early 50-year-olds who come to me and want someone just to talk to and someone just to share what they're going through and to listen to their story. And we are needed, us people with a few gray hairs are needed to be that listener and to be that come alongside and maybe in some cases guide people. But it's a very broken world. And we have navigated the broken world with Jesus. Christ has taken us through so much that we can walk with other people. And it's such a joy to do that. I get so much more joy out of spending time with someone else than anything else that I do, whether it's spending time with my daughters or my grandchildren or my son-in-laws, my son, to listen to what they have to say and to hear their point of view and possibly add something to it. It's exciting.
What advice do you have for stewarding financial resources?
Mm, well, um, God has blessed me to always be someone who's lived below my means, that I don't feel a need to collect things. I always said you have to keep it straight, dust it, clean it, and take care of it. And that takes away from my time of doing what I really like to do. Because I really don't like cleaning and I really don't like fixing things. And so then God has blessed me to live below my means and therefore to see how much joy there is in sharing what he has given you with others. It really is all his. I mean, let's be serious about my children he's given me are his, the resources he's given me are his. And so where is it that God has put a passion in my life to steward those resources? And that just gives me joy to do that.
And Cheryl, managing investments can be complex. You get a lot of deal flow. You see around a lot of people who have complex investments, and you've gone from an operator to an investor to a philanthropist. How do you manage the amount of complexity so that your investment complexity doesn't take over your world? One of the guys I coach has 114 K1s, right? And that can take 2 weeks of time just to review them.
Yes, yeah.
So what do you do to manage, like be a good steward, get good returns so that you can give extravagantly, but not get mesmerized by the market fluctuations or private equity or private debt or some, funds and that require, capital calls over time, et cetera.
Well, I've taken pretty much an easy way out. I do a little bit of do a little bit of investment in real estate, and then I have a financial investor who manages things, and we talk on probably a quarterly basis because I don't need to. I've been with him for over 25 years, so finding somebody really good has worked for me because I don't want to take the energy and the volatility. Watch the market. You know what it's like these last couple of weeks, the volatility in the market. I don't want to spend my time in that kind of a position any longer. I had that intensity when I was in the McDonald's business where I had to watch the profit loss statements daily and had to watch the food costs and had to watch the details. So I chose to take an expert, someone that I've known for a while and met early on in my career, who's proven himself very worthy of doing that. And then I do a little bit of reinvestment. But what I'm doing now is having conversations with my children on the choices I'm making. I'm actually writing a small class to take my grandkids through to teach them some of the business things I know and some of the financial things I know to work well, because I think we have to pass that down to the next generation. Um, what I learned when I was growing up in Minnesota on a farm, my parents were very clear that there were three jars that I could have. Um, Whatever I made, 10% went into one jar for God first, 50% went in the bank to get ready for college, and then I could spend 40%. And so I started talking about that with my grandkids, and they're wide-eyed. They hadn't thought about planning where their money should go. And so some of those basic things that we learn as kids, we need to keep passing down to this generation and not take it for granted.
So, we have five grandbabies now, and the littlest one, Teddy, just came along 5 weeks ago. He's, Carrie and Johan are in Berlin. Carolyn runs campus ministries for Campus Crusades in Germany. So I'm holding this little boy the other day, last week, and just a sweetheart. But they live in a condo on the top floor, and I'm looking down to the courtyard. And so I asked my son-in-law, Johan, how many families here, maybe 90 families in this condo, and how many of the kids that grow up in these families do you think know the Lord? I'm thinking about Teddy, 3 or 4 years from now, running around playing in the courtyard there with all these kids, and maybe one or two. And it begs this question: you prepare the child for the path, or the path for the child, right? What do you think when you think about our responsibility as grandparents, that have been living that longing to be the soil that produces 100-fold? How do you think we best equip them to be salt and light in a world that seems like it's changing? Who would have thought that Germany would be so far from God when Martin Luther came, out of that world just a few hundred years ago? So that was startling to me, and it's very fresh in my mind. So when you look into the eyes of these little grandbabies, what do you sense our role as a grandparent to shape them for the path they face?
Well, I think my role as a grandmother is to be involved in their life and to spend time with them, find out what their passions are, and encouraging them in those passions, but always putting Christ first. And so they see that, they're aware of it, and they can make that choice. I see that it is our role to let them discover their passions, see how God has created them, and encourage them in those passions, and come alongside of them also and be part of their lives, but always putting Christ first, so they know exactly where all your strength and your passion is coming from.
Cheryl, you mentioned a couple books. It sounds like you're a reader. You mentioned When Giving Hurts and a couple other books along the way. Do you have a couple books that have been the most impactful for you? You mentioned Counterfeit Gods as well. Are there other books that you would recommend?
Oh, there are so many. So I think right now my current book, my strongest book, is from a business standpoint, is Rocket Fuel, which helps you decide a lot. There's an assessment in there that helps you decide a lot where you fit into the business world. So I would strongly recommend Rocket Fuel, looking at who you are and where you work. Um, what book would I recommend? I just finished God Has a Name by John Mark Comer, and I am blown away by the complexity and the majestic, awesome God we have. And so I'm excited about that. I'm picking up it's Tyler Staton's book. Uh,
Oh, Living
oh,
Like Monks, or what's it called?
no,
I've
The
read this book.
Stranger, the new one on the Holy Spirit.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
No.
Anyway, I can't wait to get into that one. I'm I think to be a lifelong learner, I guess that's what I would say more than any special book, to be a lifelong learner and keep looking at some new way to increase your knowledge and increase your thought on who God is and who he wants you to be. And then also the skills that he has. Like I think like a business person. So what the business books are out there. And then I do take some fun just to read for fun. I take some time to enjoy fiction too. I just finished a bunch of the box series, which are just absolutely just for fun.
I love it. Well, Lloyd, do you have any final questions?
No, I just really, as you know, Cheryl, I've grown to really love who you are and how you're modeling Jesus in this world and using the remarkable business brain that you've been given and just humbling offering it to others and watching your impact compound. And those are the stories that we're hoping to bring to people, of people who have chosen to be the soil that God can use in remarkable ways, and always finding amazing joy in it. That's what I see in your smile, is that there's just so much joy. And I know you do fun stuff. You just went on a big trip with a friend all over the place, I think. And
Yeah.
so it's not like you're sitting around just grinding away, but the big smile tells us more than even the stories, that there's so much joy in this. So thank you for sharing your life, and we hope to share it with thousands of others.
Thank you. I've enjoyed this time with you.
Thank you for listening to the 100X podcast. Please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast service. We would greatly appreciate it if you could rate the show and leave us a review. This podcast is sponsored by Anchor Investments, whose mission is to build America's most generous real estate company. To learn more, please visit anchorinv.com.